But then we all have to have the conviction that everything will be all right, everything will be fine, everything will be sorted out. Do you all have the conviction or not? I have the conviction. As a former captain, as a former chairman, I always believe that end of the day, whatever all the wrong things are happening, everything will be straightened out. Because as I said, you cannot keep playing cross-batted shots. You have to end of the day play straight. And I always believe the maximum number of sixes, even in 2020 cricket, you all seen the IPL matches, right? The maximum number of sixes are scored where? Easiest shot, long on, long off. You see the number of straight sixes Kris Gayle scores. He's probably got the maximum number of sixes in IPL. Venky, you're the right guy to tell me that. Yes? Out of 90% of his shots will be on, long off or straight sixes. So I think the best way to do is, as you said rightly, is bring in transparency. I mean, as the chairman of the selection committee, I made sure that whenever the selection meeting took place, I attended a press conference. Because the public at large has to know. I mean, they'll ask you questions. Yes, they'll ask you tricky questions. They'll put you in a spot. They'll ask you all kinds of questions. But then as the chairman or as a leader, all of us take that responsibility and say, man, this is what. They'll ask you a question. Why did you not select X? Why you selected Y? Why you selected Z? As a chairman, the worst job in cricket, I can assure you, is being the chairman of selection of committee for India. I can assure you that much. 150% I can tell you that. Because, see, the three guys are going to be equally good. A, B, C. If you say A, why not B and C? If you see C, why not A and B? But then, when the public at large, when the people like you, what are we cricketers today? Past, present and future. It's all thanks to people like you guys. It's thanks to the cricket-loving public of India. If any cricketer is popular, famous or made a lot of money, it's only people, the public of India. So if the public of India is going to be fooled, then someday or other, something's going to happen, right? And I think that is going to happen always. That's why I said, you cannot keep playing cross-batted shots. You will get out. You will get a top edge, the ball will go up, and you will get caught. But then, as I said, in our country, don't forget, I think people with conviction, people with straightforward nature will always come forward and say, we will sort out things. These turbulent times in cricket have happened in the past. Probably it's happened in the recent past. But don't forget, that will all get sorted out. It has to get sorted out. Because I always believe the game of cricket is bigger than any individual. The game of cricket is bigger than any team. The game of cricket is bigger than any administrator. So the game of cricket itself will take care of itself. None of us will have to do anything. Don't worry. You and I are not going to have a magic wand and say, man, I've done it. I've cleaned up cricket. I've done this. I've done that. No. Don't worry. Man, the game of cricket, it's a God by itself. It is God for us. It is a religion in a country. So let's all have the belief and the conviction. As Preeta was telling in her speech, she was saying that it's all about conviction. And I think Mr. Rajiv Bajaj also in his speech spoke about conviction. It's all about conviction. Let's all have the conviction that the game of cricket on its own will clean it up on its own. You and I don't have to do anything special. You will see it happening shortly. It will definitely happen. That is my belief. I am a very person who believes in positive things happen and positive things will happen. All of us are seeing it day in and day out. As Nalin said, we get a lot kind of news. But then, don't worry. Don't worry. Be happy is what I would say. It will all happen. But only one sentence I want to talk on. Leadership in times of high expectations, though it is not my topic. I'm not supposed to be talking about it. But that is something kind of related to this is, yes, this is where strong leadership counts. This is where strong, who is a strong leader? A guy who's got conviction, as what Preeta was saying in her, final speech. This is where we'll have to believe that a country like ours, the expectations are high. As Nalin said, the cricket sponsorship, or the lady who introduced said, has gone multifold from what it was some time back. Yes, when we played the cricket, what you compare today, that's saying, but then we should not compare at all. I'm so happy about it. That's the way. We have to move on to changes in times. We have to adapt ourselves. I think that is what Rajiv Bajaj said very rightly. Adapt ourselves to what's happening and move on with it. In 2011, when we were playing the World Cup in India, imagine the high expectations of the public of India. There are 1 billion people praying for India to win. I said, when 1 billion people can pray for India, definitely India has to win. That is what you will have to have the belief as a team, or as the chairman of the selection committee, or as the captain of the team. When imagine 1 billion people praying, man, that energy itself is enough. So at times of high expectations, you will have to deliver. And then what happens? Sometimes you cannot deliver. In April of 2011, they said, Srikkanth, you are the greatest chairman. You are a wizard. You are deadly, brilliant, everything. Don't forget, just 4 months later, July, September of 2011, we got thrashed in England 4-0. Who was blamed? When we won, the team gets the credit, which is naturally due. But when you lose badly, the chairman gets thrashed. That is also naturally due. But that is what a leader has to do. At times of expectations, when things go well, give it to the team. When things don't go well, man, you take up the responsibility. And I don't know, I'm sure some of you must have seen the television interviews where I get blasted. Yeah, I think you selected the wrong team. Even Mr. Arun Lal must have said in his speeches, wherever he wanted to, these guys selected the wrong team, blah, blah, blah. You have to say it for the news sake, my dear friend. I know you said it. There's nothing wrong in it. I'll have to say it today. When I do my news shows and see it happen, I'll have to curse a guy like Arun Lal, who was the chairman probably. But that is part and parcel of news, part and parcel of cricket. So, at times of high expectations, accept praises and, of course, thrashings in the same stride, then you will move on in life successfully. The same thing in cricket. This is a time when don't forget high expectations from the public of India that everything will be started on cricket. I can assure you it will happen automatically. Good luck. God be with you guys. Oh, sorry. That's good luck.
May I ask Mr. Arun Lal to be the second speaker? We'll have two opening batsmen and then we'll go to Mr. Venky Mysore.
Very good evening to you all, and extremely grateful for the opportunity to be standing here before you. Chika, as we know him and adored him and loved him for what he did for everybody with that cricket bat, he kept it simple. He kept everything simple when he played cricket, and he's kept everything simple, and it's a tough act to follow. But talking about conviction, before I come to the topic in hand, there is one fabulous sentence which has created champions. I'm sure most of you would be aware of this particular sentence. There was a gentleman called Charles Paddock who in 1920 said that he wanted to be the fastest man on earth. And he wasn't a very tall man. He was about 5'7", 5'8", and he was a magnificent athlete. And they said to him, everybody, his coach, his family, his friends, and everybody told him that, hey, you're a surefire winner of the gold medal if you do the 5,000 meters or the 10,000 meters. But he said, it's my dream, it's my passion to be the fastest man on earth. And to cut a long story short, he carried on, he sacked his coach, he trained on his own. He was a loner for a long while. But in the Olympics, 1920, I think it was Helsinki, he came out with the gold medal, and those people who were watching, they saw just a whir of legs. They couldn't even see his strides because every one stride of his opponent was probably more than 1.5 of his, and yet he went on to win the gold medal. And he said this one particular sentence, which sort of epitomizes conviction: if you think you can, you can. It's a very simple sentence, a very powerful one, created lots of champions after him, and it's been the thing that people follow when they are preparing in the sports arena. If you think you can, you can. And that's basically conviction. So basically coming down to our topic today, sport. I'm not only talking about the IPL or cleaning up the IPL or cricket in particular. Sport, the world over, is ridden with corruption as well. It's not as though everybody is corrupt. There will be the odd deviant in every walk of life, in every field of endeavor that you pursue. You will come across the deviant, but that doesn't mean that sport in itself is corrupt. There will be a few. It's a reflection of our society. It's who we are and where we come from. In fact, gambling, betting, a little bit of corruption, match fixing, all this is not something that started with the IPL, and it's not going to die with it either. It's going to be there. It's our endeavor that we try and contain it to the best of our abilities. And as we move forward, that is what the BCCI and everybody else involved with the game is also endeavoring to do. Now, basically, when I talk about 3 or 4 things that I feel would be in line in trying to get and to achieve our goals. One, basic thing is education of players. It's counseling of players. It's the players, they are caught in this entire scenario a lot before they become stars. They get caught in, they get befriended by unscrupulous elements when they are just big potential Ranji Trophy cricketers, and then they cannot break that particular association and get sucked into it deeper and deeper. And some of them, very few of them I might add, and I believe, actually go on and do what they do. So basically counseling, education, and what constitutes impropriety. You'll be amazed to know that a lot of us do not believe or do not even know what is right or wrong. In our Indian psyche, if you tell somebody conflict of interest, till very recently, it was either conflict, I understand, and interest, certainly I do. But conflict of interest क्या होता है ये किसी को मालूम ही नहीं था, और कितनी बड़ी बात है ये तो मालूम ही नहीं था किसी को, और शायद इसका एहसास भी नहीं है आज तक. बहुत ही हाल में अभी कुछ it's become something really big, and I think that's really fabulous for not only sport but general society in particular, that this conflict of interest, especially in our sporting bodies, was never considered any factor at all. There are so many larger issues to attend to than this particular conflict of interest. ये तो समझ नहीं आती. दूसरी, इसमें इतनी बड़ी बात है क्या? हम सब संभाल रहे हैं ना. We're all honorary. We're all doing a great job. We're all going to do it the same, try and keep the same goals and the same results. So one is educating, counseling, not only cricketers, not only the players, but say coming to the IPL scenario, the owners have to be counseled as well. We've seen some of the owners or attached to a particular franchise have been betting. Now betting is another thing. I'm sure all of us in this room know a lot of people, maybe some of us do. A lot of people bet, and not many people think that it's something very wrong to do. I know a lot of friends who bet and bet on cricket, bet on other sport, and it's part of our, of who we are. In fact, even in the Mahabharata, there was betting and gambling going on. But the point is that if you are in the ownership of a franchise, you don't bet. And definitely don't bet against yourselves, because then again, it's an impropriety. And betting against yourself is tantamounting to match fixing. Match fixing, another thing that we're talking about, or spot fixing, didn't originate or didn't start with the IPL. It's been there for as long as sport has been there. It's a big thing that's happening all over the world, in FIFA, in football, in anywhere, in tennis, in boxing, in anywhere. In Australia, it's the biggest problem, which is corruption in sport. There have been huge parliamentary discussions on it as well. So match fixing has been, I can tell you, I grown roots in Bengal and Kolkata. There are lots of matches in the club level that were fixed. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You are in the league, you are in a position where you just might be demoted. So I'm in a position of strength. I'm not vying for the title. I've got enough points I've already garnered. So I lose my match to you. So you stave off relegation into the next division. That happens. That happens even today. And that's been happening for a long time. People were suspected of or allegedly involved with match fixing long before the IPL came in. And the IPL, to me, is probably one of the best things that's happened to Indian cricket. It's the most phenomenal brand that India now has, and it's something that the world looks up to. And it's our complete responsibility and endeavor to try and keep it clean and carry on for the fan that's supporting it. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to educate everybody, the franchise, the player, and one thing I forget, you know, the managers of players, managers of events, they too, like say in America, or I beg your pardon, in England, when you manage a player, you have to be ratified and you have to be screened by the board. And that's important because you don't want undesirables coming in. The player himself doesn't know who he's dealing with and what are his antecedents, where does he come from, what has he been doing. You only know him as a successful business person. So all those things. So there's a need to educate the player, the franchise, the owner, and the manager. And that's what the Board of Control is endeavoring to do. In fact, as I speak, 3 or 4 days ago, just before we starting the Ranji Trophy season, there were teams that were counseled by the anti-corruption unit of the board, and all the players were invited to be, there and to understand and accept the certain regulations that there will be to try and contain this particular problem. Legalizing betting is another thing that keeps cropping up, and in fact, just before the start of this, there is this question that's been asked to the audience as well, that legalizing betting, is that the best thing to do to try and stave off corruption in sport? Me personally, I don't believe so, at least not in the Indian scenario. Yes, it'll probably take away 5% of the normal betting market, which is probably astronomical. There are all kinds of figures, but nobody really knows. It'll be only, to me, 5 or 10% will transfer to the legal part. The 90% will stay in the grey market, which it actually, the way it is at the moment. Most of the betting is unaccounted for money. It's unscrupulous betting without any joy at all. So if you legalize betting, what you'll do is you'll make two sets of bettors. You'll make the legal bettor and you'll make the normal bettor. And the normal bettor, as we know it, is going to prevail. And this particular thing, while yes, it's a way forward, but it's not going to be a panacea of all the evil that prevails. Finally, let me say that, if we can get rid of conflict of interest, we get rid of, by educating and counseling. The most important thing to me in trying to sort out things is legislation. In India, we do not have a law against match fixing as we know it. You might have somebody, I can tomorrow even confess to match fixing, but I cannot be then punished and jailed. So the courts do not have, rights over it because there is no law definitely against match fixing. It is either the 420 law or something else, which is very, very hard to prove till you can prove the money trail. And that's almost impossible to actually prove. So a lot of people who are involved in this get away because of the fact that there's no legislation and there's no a particular law, like there is now in Italy, after the big names like Paolo Rossi and all were involved in all kind of improprieties. So they have a legal setup there. In England, you can be jailed for it, as we know, as we've seen in the recent past. New Zealand, before the World Cup, legislated a law against match fixing to guard against this eventuality. And so the way forward to me is, more than legalizing betting, is first get a law in place against match fixing that can be acted upon and acted against the particular deviant. And finally, to me, I believe that IPL, which is a great brand, why it can't be made into a corporate setup, it just occurs to me, maybe a little far-fetched, maybe a little down in the future, that I believe that that's where we will be headed eventually. It should be something like the BBC in England, which is under the aegis of the government, which is, it's a government entity, but for all practical purposes, for day-to-day functioning, it's a separate corporate entity. And it's run professionally, it's run by the best, not not honorary governing councils and not honorary people running it. Although I don't decry the fact that the IPL has been established and made by magnificent visionaries and people who have devoted their lives to the sport. It's fantastic. It's a great thing. But going forward, I believe that the future lies in corporatization of the IPL and pushing it to its limits and its natural conclusions. Those are the things that come to my mind. But at the moment, I'm not overly optimistic that that's the road it will take. But in time, I'm hopeful that it really might. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arun Lal. And may I now turn to Mr. Venky Mysore, who comes at it from a more business perspective, who runs the business of cricket or the business of Kolkata Knight Riders, certainly to give his perspective on what we're talking about. And he's going to speak from the chair.
What happened?
No, thank you very much, first of all, for the opportunity. And usually, I've got a bit of a bad throat here, but usually in the company of Chica, I lose my voice usually. But this has happened a bit more naturally. But the reason I decided there was no reason to get up there to talk is I feel like, in a T20 format with 2 balls to go, and when the opening batsmen have done their job, really, and they've covered all the ground and the match is kind of secure, there's nothing for me to do. So they've said everything that needs to be said very eloquently. And so let me see if I can just add a couple of things, same points coming at a slightly different perspective. First and foremost, I think IPL has been substantially in the news, and a lot of spotlight has been on it. But I, for one, having been part of it, to have been fortunate to be part of it, and I always tell people, since I'm also in the entertainment business, one of the perks of my job is that I'm constantly in the company of very high performance people. And so somewhere, it has to rub off, and it's a huge perk. But what is obvious now, I'm stating the obvious, is that this is a product that has caught the imagination of the public. I don't think there is anything that has swept the sports industry like the IPL has. And coming from a corporate world, corporate background, if today we put a value on this product, it'll be one of the most successful companies that has grown probably in the last 6-7 years, because you're talking about it being a multi-billion-dollar company. And just a show of hands here, just a quick check here. How many of you have actually gone to a ground to watch an IPL game? So that's quite a few. Obviously, if I ask you if you watch it on TV, I'm sure all the hands will go up. That's just sort of a quick sample of it. What has actually happened is that our own interests and our lifestyles are changed so much that our attention spans are shortening quite a bit. And particularly when I see my children, they say, entertain me now and entertain me the way I want to, how I want to. And so that's this product compressed and packaged in a way that has caught the imagination of the public. So we have many things to be thankful for a product that has actually, I think in many ways, if I may, Arun and Chika, has actually revived cricket and brought crowds back to the stadium. And I grew up being a huge Test cricket fan, and it pains me a lot today when I see empty stadiums. And we used to wake up at the wee hours of the morning to go watch our heroes playing Test cricket, but nobody does that anymore. But when I see, and we're very fortunate that in Calcutta that we have a stadium which is the biggest capacity, and we're very fortunate that the city has embraced us, and game after game we fill up the stadium, which is 80,000-90,000 people, and people who come from the outside are fascinated by it. And when we play the opening game, invariably we're invited to play the opener. The last opener had a viewership of over 55 million people on TV. So this is a product that has caught the imagination of people. It's here to stay. And I actually believe that this product is actually going to act as a catalyst for change. Because today we are hearing terminologies which I never thought we'll hear in the context of cricket, which is conflict of interest, governance, and structures around it. And I said, wow, in cricket you always thought that you were only talking about strategies and terminology around cricket. But this is being thought of as a very different product And Arun alluded to how the corporatization of IPL could happen. And in fact, that's one of the things that in different forums I've particularly spoken about, because it's not an original idea. These types of models exist elsewhere. And so I think that what has actually happened in a funny way is going to speed up the change in administration of cricket that is much needed. And it is brought to focus because it is a product called IPL. You know. And I think this change is actually going to be happening very, very fast, because now, for right or wrong reasons, courts have gotten involved, and I'm told that there is going to be some kind of a prescription on some of the changes to governance that's going to be recommended by the Lodha committee. We'll see what comes out of that. But I don't think we need to complicate it too much, because I mean, when we heard the Honorable Chief Minister in the previous session, I mean, in a fairly mature democracy like ours, you know, there are problems in administration that he was pointing out, and he gave examples of it. So I don't think we should be overly flustered by what is actually happening. This is a young baby which is about 7 or 8 years old, but very quickly it has brought the focus on areas that need change, and I think it will happen. What it boils down to, in my opinion, is not so much about rules and regulations and laws. I mean, in my previous life, I was in financial services, so I operated for 2 decades in a very highly regulated environment. But I'm here to tell you that there are a lot of problems that happen. I worked in the US for 14 years, you know, and there are a lot of problems. You know, we know what has happened in the banking industry, we know what has happened in the insurance industry, and there isn't an industry which hasn't faced some kind of a scandal. So rules and regulations, there are plenty of them there. I don't think they necessarily solve the problem. The need of the hour, really, if we want to keep it simple, is all about leadership. You know? And Chika alluded to that. It's about leadership, and it's about a mindset. You know? If the mindset and the desire is to say, we're going to fix this problem, it's not an insurmountable one at all. You know? Today we are talking about anti-corruption measures, and we are sending our players to anti-corruption debriefing sessions. They're wondering, we are used to going to net practice sessions, not these type of sessions. But that's life today, because there is so much commercial angles to everything that is happening that it is almost necessary for every player to become well briefed about it, because I'm actually giving them a piece of paper. And some of the things that we are doing on our own, call it self-regulation, is we actually write down a code of conduct for our players and our support staff. And we brief them before every team meeting, at the cost of boring them to death, but saying, listen, you're going to sign a piece of paper here, so let me explain to you what you're signing. You know? We never thought this will happen in cricket, you know? But that's life today, and there's a lot at stake. You know? So I think it's all about leadership, it's about desire. When that is there as a foundation, I think the structures will come. The structures are not very difficult at all, because Chika, I think, alluded to it as to who's your biggest stakeholder. I think the biggest stakeholder are people like you who are sitting here, who's buying a ticket, who are coming to the stadium or turning on the TV to watch the game. And we can't let them down, I think, for sure. So what it leads to is that when you have the desire to say that I'm going to address the needs of the stakeholders, I mean, forget about the owners who are putting in money, and there is plenty, and you know, in the introduction when Nalin said that we were the first one to break even and all, I usually cringe when that is said, because next tomorrow there'll be a tax department call or something saying, tell us how much money you've made. There's not a lot of money to be made in IPL right now, because it's in an invest mode. It's like a startup company. I mean, you're investing in it for the future, and it'll take time for it to build. But be that as it may, I think when we start thinking in terms of the role of the stakeholders, every owner's responsibility is to make sure that they're running a clean franchise. You know? And it starts at the top and the tone that is set. And once that happens, like in any organization, the rest of the structural issues do follow. Yes, there has been talk about legalizing betting. You know, I think many of the experts, I'm no expert on that, but many of the experts say that, you know, there is tax revenue for the government, and it makes it legal. And when it is legal, I think what tends to happen is that people who, I've talked to a lot of people in the law enforcement, and they say that invariably, because of the illegality of betting, that potentially might lead to fixing in some way. So maybe that's an answer. I don't know.